Femboys, the internet's latest fixation. A drastic change from the previous fixations of finger-licking, good, tasty feet and 7-foot-tall mommies. Freud would be ecstatic over the modern age. Well, we can just call me the Sigmund Freud of femboys, with slightly less of the cocaine. But you may say, Humongous, what the heck is all this talk about femboys? I thought this was supposed to be a horror channel. What's the big idea? Well, if I could see you right now, I would give you a big slap right across your mug. Some of the best things in life is squishing together two delectable things. Peanut butter and jelly between two slices of bread. Taco Bell and 7 beers. And my favorite things, analog horrors and femboy. Femboy is usually defined as male individuals who express themselves with traditionally feminine characteristics. This may be through the use of jewelry, feminine clothing, and makeup, or expressing feminine behavioral qualities, or as I like to define it, being fucking awesome. Of course, as what usually happens with the internet's fetishes, most of the people claiming to love a specific group or aesthetic have actually never met one of these people. Everyone says they want a shut-in weeb girlfriend, but you sit them down with one and then they realize, oh, they aren't a caricature. They're actually fucking losers. Likewise, you sit most of these so-called femboy lovers in front of a real one and they realize, hey, that's a dude. It's like when I went to Europe and had to spend the first hour realizing these were real people with lives and not just silly little mascots for my American entertainment. We will be rating how good a femboy each analog horror would be by these criteria. Looks. We can't just pop a little bow on them. We're actually designing these femboys in respective outfits with how I would see a personification of them. Personality. Of course, there's varying personalities to these horrors, so we will judge on how well this personality will translate over. Not all of these are going to be so kawaii. Survivability. If they kill me, I'll probably dock some points. Online traffic. Femboys are closely associated now with a large social media or other platforms followings. Will they be successful, or are they going to be one of those losers trying to promote under other people's posts? I decided to start this journey on what I believe is the poster boy of this channel, and that is Bornglobo Hornglo. For you newcomers asking, what the heck is Bornglobo Hornglo? Well, frankly, I don't really know either. This is an obvious joke series with no clear story, but I love the effort put into it and just look at him. But from the bits and pieces I can pick out from the 3 episodes, we get some background to what true potential Bornglobo Hornglo could reach. Bornglobo is an entity that seems to take form within the digital, seen prominently in a 2000s computer. Bornglobo seems to have some effect on natural structures as well as in the universe. He seems to be a great people's guy, having his best buds around him, and also probably having an in with the US government. Not even the worst guy they have associated with. And from Bornglonglin, we can infer that Bornglobo is an ancient creature. Maybe the moon, maybe a dinosaur, I don't know. Maybe even a woman. But we can't really tell, can we? But there are dinosaurs, and that's the most important part. So my first problem with designing these femboys is the fact that, well, look at what I'm working with. Look, most fan artists around just add big ol' honkers to their humanoid designs of non-humans, and I can't really do that, can I? So I decided to go off of personality, and not much to that either. But I think Bornglobo is the type of guy to say, I don't give a fuck about anything. So I decided to pose him in a way that reflects that. He's a big smiley guy, look at that. So let's have him popping a smug grin on his mug. Bornglobo obviously loves to show himself off, from what is seen in the series. So let's have some skin showing, not too much. Gotta be a little family friendly, but we gotta get Instagram followers somehow. I dove heavily into the dinosaur theme. I mean, it's like over a third of the total content in the series, so we gotta add a little tail. And for colors, I used a wide range of colors for Bornglobo, that being light yellow and dark yellow. And of course a little pink, because what would a femboy be without pink? I think this is the best I could have done with what I was given. And in terms of a femboy aesthetic, I would give this a 7 out of 10. Bornglobo would definitely be one of those dommy, mommy, smug type of characters, which doesn't fit into the stereotype of kawaii that gooners typically like, but would definitely garner an audience. 8 out of 10. We never see Bornglobo inflict any deaths, but those horns could be a little dangerous. 9 out of 10. Sadly, these days you need something to stand out, and among the social media world, I don't see Bornglobo gaining the largest of audiences, even if he changes landscapes and governments for free advertisement. 5 out of 10. I also recreated his iconic thumbnail. I always interpreted that as like a little wave, so that's how I depicted it. The Mandela Catalogue, we can thank it for the iconic analog horror face, making the whole media of internet horror all the best. So I decided to start on the false angel Gabriel, the main antagonist of the Mandela Catalogue. Basically, doesn't really do anything besides stand there and make a funny face sometimes. Honestly, I think this is going to be easier than Bornglobo. He kind of already looks like a femboy, so I just need to exaggerate those features. Gabriel obviously thinks he's hot shit, so I made sure to make him imposing with a big smile. Of course, not as big as normal, so you can dock me on that. I used the design elements of a lot of rings in the outfit, as well as a halo, as well as inclusions of crosses, the one wing representing the falsity of his angel status, and a heavy use of gold and blue, really making him feel angelic, while the light blue giving that femboy aesthetic. I think this is a pretty crisp interpretation of a stylized Gabriel, but unfortunately, I have to say this post-humorously that this isn't the most femboy-ish. At least that's not the first thing I would think when I see this. 7 out of 10. This gives off extremely smug, to the point that some viewers might even be put off. And with a probable annoying fan base, this is a 6 out of 10. I don't think he would kill me himself, but I feel like a rabid fan base of imposters would if I critiqued him. 6 out of 10. Highly passionate cult following and can probably just start spawning imposters, so 9 out of 10. Following up on Gabriel is his little goon. Not goon as in, I meant like supervillain goons. Whatever. The intruder, seen once and then returns with a crazy skin to your routine, silky smooth. I decided to make him a freaking gremlin, just craving attention, stinky, probably, wears this hoodie all the time, kinda jealous that Gabriel gets all the limelight, so is showing off way more skin. Even having 2 wings to kinda get a 1-up on Gabriel. What a freaking loser, can't even put a coat on right, fucking idiot. Man, I hate this guy. How the heck does that crowbar stay in his pocket? I'm not even bothering. I'm not even bothering to rate him. He's like 6 out of 10 on everything. Get out of my sight. Next up is Alan, the creature, the goobly, whatever the heck he is. If you haven't watched the Daisy Brown series, I'm not gonna be one of those YouTubers that gives like a 5-minute presentation summary, fucking Wikipedia article of what happens. Basically, he's just a creature that quickly grows into an abusive fiend and is an alleged cat murderer. Alan is a crusted guy, probably a little smelly, and has this rank blanket in the series, so I went full hog on this and decided to make the smelliest, stinkiest guy who doesn't take care of himself, adding these thigh highs just to make him a proper femboy. And let's add some piss bottles, some monster drinks, and this spilled bottle. I don't know if I want to interpret this as a beer or a piss bottle when he was super dehydrated, so I'll let that be up to you guys. For a human representation of Alan, I think this is pretty spot on. And you know what? This is simple, but I think it's working for a femboy vibe. I think there's people who are totally into this. 9 out of 10. Yeah, Alan is a piece of shit and definitely killed a cat on stream. But he's funny sometimes, so the viewers don't even care because he's just a little stinky, freaking stinky guy. Ugh. 10 out of 10. Yeah, I like to see him try. 10 out of 10. I'm seeing a cult following spawn for him. He's a dick. Not because of his dick, just his personality is a dick. But because of this small aesthetic, he will literally kill a cat on stream, and his followers will love him so much, under any post talking about it, they will just say, proof? 10 out of 10. Urban Spook. Known as one of the worst analog horrors on YouTube. Urban Spook follows a murderer. 2 of them, actually. But the only one we care about is known as the Painter, who kills whoever the fuck, and as the name implies, paints every victim. And you know, the Painter kinda could give off femboy, but unlike Gabriel, I'm not gonna use this depiction because it's just kinda gross. I decided to completely change the Painter's design, kinda a dig at the edginess of Urban Spook, and instead just made him a little guy. Can't really say much about the thought process. I just made what I thought of when I think of an art major. And I just added a little touch of the type of paintings the painter would originally make. I like the design so much, I even made a second one. Okay, I know this is not a one-to-one of the painter at all, but you know, if I tried to depict this as a femboy, it would literally just be Alan again. But this just oozes femboy. So I'll give him an 8 out of 10. Art major, and also maybe a murderer. Choose which one's worse. 3 out of 10. The crazy thing is, this is probably the deadliest femboy so far. 2 out of 10. They're really likely to have some Twitter art account with a lot of followers just to be cancelled for being a stalker creep, maybe a murderer, allegedly. 5 out of 10. The Boiled One, before turning into a marketable plushie, was one of the scarier analog horrors I had seen, the only one that had actually scared me after I turned 12. But if we look through the eyes of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, he defines the philosophy of a life centered around eudaimonia, which can be translated as flourishing. He stated that what separates us from plants and animals is that we can guide our lives through reasoning, through virtue, which he defines as something that is entirely active, that we have to go and do, and thus life is fulfilling, flourishing, and active ongoing engagement in virtuous actions and contemplation. A sense of life that is stripped away from the Boiled One, whose face can paralyze and causes your eyes to be forever scarred with the sight of him. Would that be any way of living a flourishing life? So now if we look at this in terms of a femboy, I decided to make the Boiled One's design one that forces you to look with the bright red and contrasting black. We have a big smile in reference to the maw of the original Boiled One. Is there anything lore-wise why we have spikes coming out of his head? No. A camera dangles around his neck in reference to the transmission of the Boiled One being through broadcasting, and a vine in reference to the nature documentary or whatever it was that the original broadcast interference of the Boiled One was. I think the Boiled One is hot. 10 out of 10. The Boiled One doesn't kill its victims, rather choosing to keep them in a perpetual state of following, so 10 out of 10. Simply due to the fact that looking at his face will make you basically have to follow him. Nothing better to do, I guess. 10 out of 10. And our last horror entity who will have the privilege to become a femboy is Ronald Reagan.